Welcome back to Crafting a Meaningful Life. I have a confession to make this morning. It isn't very often that I show up on a podcast and I am like dumbfounded that this person is older than me. Almost all of them are younger than me. And if there is someone that is older, they look older. Almost all of my guests are like, "Oh my gosh, Mary, I can't hardly believe you're 72. You look so fabulous." And so when we got on this morning with my guest, the first thing we did was play the "How old are you" game. And she bet me that she was older. And I said, "No, I think we're the same." And sure enough, the woman that I had facing me on the camera that looked younger than me is 80. Now, are you ready for the secrets of life and how did she get there? Because, I'm like always in pursuit of that. I'm in pursuit of the things that craft a meaningful life for me. And this woman has got it. If I can be her in 8 years, dang, I am listening today. So welcome, Vicki Gold to the podcast.
Thank you, Mary. Who is this person? I got to
It's
meet her.
you!
Oh, no. Thank you.
We even did this thing where we held up our arms. We're like, who's got the best arm? You know what I mean? You were like, look at that. She no flabby skin. She's amazing. Oh, Vicki, really, I'm being serious now. I feel like as I read through your website and the things that you're offering, you really do have some keys that are allowing people to step in to the aging process gracefully, powerfully. And this isn't necessarily the aging process that happens after 60. This is the aging process that happens really, truly at birth. And we get serious about it after age 30 and really after age 50.
If we're
And
smart.
if you don't pay attention now, I can tell you, when you get to our age, they're not going to be happy. So let's start with your physical therapy and what you do there. You have a master's degree, all those kinds of things. I want my listeners to know all about you.
So, first of all, I am a retired physical therapist. I was in the field either with hands-on with patients or clients, or I also had opportunities to work in the academic setting. And what you may not have heard, Mary, was that I had directed a physical therapist assistant program at LaGuardia Community College in New York.
Ah,
Um, and just a real quick background, I chose the field of physical therapy when I was 15. I had had exposure to a younger brother who was developmentally disabled, and a girlfriend who was one of the last victims of polio
oh,
before or as the vaccine was being rolled out. And finally was at a camp that was visited by a camp of handicapped children. I was completely at ease with them, and the counselor said, "Have you considered physical therapy?" And the rest was history, Mary.
wow, that's beautiful. And of course, you and I know what life was like before the vaccine and
Mm.
and how it just completely changed the lives of children who were being put in wheelchairs at young ages.
Iron lungs. Iron
Iron
lungs.
lungs,
Girl
they couldn't breathe,
Yeah.
so many problems, and we
Mhm.
eradicated it. And so this is not gonna be a political podcast, I promise, but I am a pro-vaccine person because we have both seen the other side.
Yeah. And I've been blessed to being healthy and not afflicted by some of these things that were preventable. End of that story.
Yeah.
Uh, on the other thing, as far as my background goes, I don't know if you would ask specifically about that, but over the years as I was practicing physical therapy, of course, I did all the continuing education. I was very eclectic in my approach. Some people like to specialize. I like knowing a lot of things. But the other thing is I started taking a lot of trainings in yoga, Tai Chi, Pilates, Alexander Feldenkrais
Ah,
techniques. So, what you and I are going to be talking about is the systems I created out of this extensive background.
I love that. I love all of that, Vicky. So you in your physical therapy journey, you obviously worked with a lot of people. In fact, I'm in physical therapy right now because I had hand surgery to correct some rheumatoid arthritis in my hand, and I'm just getting back so I can almost make a fist. It's been a
Okay.
journey. I'm not going to do this hand I was, but I can still make a fist with this hand. So I'm still working there.
Yeah.
But you get one-on-one work with people in their problems and how they're struggling, how they and I bet you can tell when you start working with someone, do they have what it takes in here to come back? Because I think a huge part of this is a mental piece. It's not just a physical piece. So let's talk
Oh
about your
my goodness.
experience with that.
Oh my goodness. I didn't know. Yeah, it makes sense that we go there. And in the days that I was trained, taking, being aware and learning how to integrate the psychological aspects of, shall we say, recovery, was just not a big part of our
Right.
training. Nowadays, there is something called biopsychosocial, and I'm thinking, man, I was doing that way before. And so, examples that I have of where I kind of stepped out of my what was formal training in those days, was a woman when I was living and working in Brazil who was a young mother, and she had been in a car accident and she was paraplegic. And you would expect that this would be the kind of person who would be the first one into the exercise class that we had for paraplegics. And she didn't go. She didn't go. She didn't go. And finally, I pulled her aside and we had a conversation in my broken Portuguese, her broken English, about the fact that as a Latin woman, uh, she felt that she could no longer be the kind of wife that her husband might
Ah.
expect. And there was nothing more for me to say or do except get to the psychologist, talk to the psychologist. But she just having that little conversation and having her be able to express her concerns, her fear about what her disability was doing, she became a cheerleader in the class. That's one story. Do you wanna hear another?
I love these stories about people whose mental abilities and emotional strength allowed them to come back from a physical injury.
I have 2 wonderful stories then. One is a lady who had had a total mastectomy, for cancer, and when she got to me in physical therapy, she had never looked at her scar, she had never touched it, she had done
Ah,
minimal as far as the exercises that are recommended to get back the range of motion. Long story short, we had a conversation. It seems her daughter was berating her for not doing her exercises, and I again, stepping outside of my comfort zone in a way, I spoke to the daughter, and to the mother, who I referred to a therapist, a psychotherapist, and by the end of our time together, her scar was much better. She was touching it, she was doing all the exercises. Had we not had that conversation, who knows? And then the last one,
yeah.
which goes back to something that you and I spoke about before you started recording, has to do with what I call forbidden words.
Yeah.
And I didn't tell you the story related. You want to hear that?
Yes, yes, because it has to do with that forbidden word, "We shall ever be spoken."
Well, okay, so here we go. a woman, a very senior lady, was wheeled into the physical therapy gym for the first time after she had had hip surgery. And it was the first time that we were bringing her into the parallel bars. And I'm assuming everybody is somewhat
Yeah.
familiar with parallel bars where you can hold on as you
Yep.
learn to walk again. And this poor woman, from the minute she was wheeled into the therapy department, was yelling and crying and screaming, I can't, I can't, I can't. By the way, this story is in my book. We have to talk about my book.
Yes.
And as therapists, we have all kinds of strategies. Come on, sweetheart, you can do it. Or we can be firm. All right, we're going to stand up and we're going to stand up and walk now. And none of my strategies was working with this lady. None of them. And so I finally said, okay, you win. I am going to let you go back to your room. I am not going to try to stand you anymore today. However, I do need you to say the words, I'll try. I can't, I can't, I can't. She's still hysterical. I promise you, I will let you go. I will not try to stand you again. I will let you go back to your room. I just need to hear the words, I'll try. And eventually, this little voice, you could barely hear it, said, I'll try. I said, good. Now I'm going to keep my promise and I'm going to let you go back to your room. And I was getting ready to unlock the brakes of her chair. And then something made me say, well, would you like to try? The head nods, yes. I barely help her to stand up. And the next thing you know, this woman walked to the full length of the parallel bars, turned around, walked back again, turned and sat down. So if you ever need to, if you will, or ever doubt the question about our self-talk and how powerful our self-talk is, whether it's positive or negative, that's the example.
I love that, Vicki. As I talked to you about, I had this hand surgery where they replaced 3 of the joints, rebuilt
Wow.
2 of the knuckles, and I was an everyday woman at the gym. Every other day cardio, every other day strength training. And now it has been 3 months since I have done any strength training. And I was starting to get that, I don't know if I'll ever get my hand to go around a weight again. I don't know if I had the strength in my hand to hold it. When the last time I dropped when I before I did this, I dropped a 35-pound weight on my foot because I didn't have the
Oh,
strength. And I said, "Well, John," my husband said, "Do you think you could hold 5 pounds?" And that part in me was like, "Well, I'm not going back to 5 pounds. Don't be ridiculous." Do you know what I mean? I said, "At the very least I would do would be 25." And it's like, "Mary, you're starting over. Is your pride gonna get in the way?" And it truly was a matter of pride of going to the gym in front of all those strong men that I used to walk in there and do my thing, and I'm like, "Okay, I'm not gonna go right when they're there at from 5 to 7 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm retired. I can choose a different time. I am gonna pick up that 5-pound weight." And yesterday, for the first time, I went back. I put my hand around that. I actually could pick up 10, and I held it, and I did a few reps. I set it down. I looked up at John and said, "I'm back." That all it took was the belief that I could do it and
yes.
and and to let go of how I looked. This woman who got up and walked the length of the parallel bars, part of what was keeping her was a fear of how she was gonna look during the process. I wasn't gonna get up there and walk like I always did. I'm gonna look like a fool. What if I fall? And all those fears keep us from moving forward in baby steps.
Mhm.
And it's those baby steps that are the important place to start.
Yeah. That's your really valid point. Although I will tell you the truth, at her age, I don't think she was concerned about how she looked. I think she was afraid of the pain, but that's another story. um,
Well, but it's still fear. Whether
Yes,
you're
yes,
afraid of how you look or you're afraid of the pain or you're
yes,
afraid of failing, whatever it is,
yes,
it's still fear that we have to
yes.
step through. Vicki, as you
Yeah.
have written this book now, tell me kind of what piece. Oh, yeah, there's the book. Ah, and we're including the
Yeah.
links at the end of the podcast because if you're like me and you want to be as active and as smart in the brain, and because this has also a mental piece, you'll want to go on and buy this book because I don't want to lose what I've gained. I want
Okay,
to continue.
here
That
we
is it.
go.
Aging safely. What does
Why?
that say?
Yeah, I can read it. It's
Wisely. Aging.
aging
Yeah.
safely, wisely, and well. It's a movement and mindset guide for older adults.
Oh,
Yeah, it's interesting when I first started with the ABC systems that are in the book. That's that those ABC systems. The first one, the ABC mind body system. And then the second one, the ABCs of personal growth and development, those are key elements to impacting how I recommend we go about moving and thinking as we move through our lives. And I'd mentioned to you, Mary, that the tagline for my company, Thera Fitness Inc., is transforming the ways you move through life. Before I forget, when you were talking about the the way we I think you were talking about the ways we think, the things we say to ourselves that can impact, and overcoming fear. At some point, I'd love to discuss how to approach our really senior years, because so God willing, I'll be turning 81 on 9/11, and it's interesting with each decade, there's a certain freedom and a certain understanding about our lives, my life, and so, here I got myself a little distracted. You were talking about your hand and really working on gradually improving. When it comes to aging, for some of us, there are some things that all the exercise in the world will not bring us back to how we might have been in our younger years. And part of aging wisely is learning to accept. Oh, it almost sounds like I can go into the serenity prayer here, to accept the things I cannot change.
right.
All right. To change the things I can, you read the book. Oh, this is getting really interesting.
Yeah.
Change the things I can, and then the wisdom to know the
The
difference.
difference.
Yeah. So as we're aging, there are certain changes, there are certain accommodations we have to make to things that we cannot change, like the wrinkles. I am not going to have plastic surgery.
Yeah.
Uh, whatever it is, and learning to accept and make the most of what we have as we age, I think is a really important message. And boy, did I just jump on a soapbox.
Well, I love your soapbox. I love it because um, I do think that as we age, there is an acceptance piece there of the season of life that we are in, for sure. And that my goal is not necessarily to get back to that 35-pound weight over my head, but my goal is to be my very best, and
Yes,
whatever that is at this
yes.
point in my life. What things does your book cover things that women at any age can begin to embrace now so their senior years can be a happier, joyous place for them?
So this is actually where the ABC mind body system comes in. And what those ABCs are, and what I encourage people and encourage people to really take on, those ABCs are alignment, and recognizing the importance of good posture, not
Yeah.
only for how you look, but there's also a psychological benefit to being more confident.
Yep.
There's that mind-body connection. You look more confident, you tend to feel more confident, so that's another advantage of good postural alignment. And then, of course, there's the reality that our lungs, our internal organs function better when we've got better alignment. So that's the A. The B is breathing. And I
Uh,
always say, look, you don't have to think about breathing, it happens automatically. However, if you start doing what I call conscious breathing, where you
yes.
now use your breathing as a tool, most often people are going to use it as a tool for stress reduction. You're under stress, you're under tension, you're even excited. All right, there's this tendency for breathing to get more shallow, to get more up in your chest.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly, exactly. So now you become conscious, you slow your breathing down, and you learn to focus more on these, what I call slow, prolonged exhalation,
Mhm.
because that's where the relaxation component comes in. It's not in the
Yeah.
breathing in, it's in that slow, prolonged exhalation. And the other benefit of the slow, prolonged exhalation is that you're getting rid of stale air in the lungs. Because mostly we don't exhale all the way. And there's what we call in the field residual air. It kind of sits in the corners like the dust bunnies in our
Yeah.
closet. Not that I'd admit to having any. and, the, and the slow, prolonged exhalation helps get rid of those dust bunnies in the corner of your lungs. So now when you breathe in, hopefully through your nose, there's more lung tissue to take in oxygen. Now you've got the
Uh,
possibility of more energy. And this is particularly relevant for people who may have chronic obstructive pulmonary disease or who, for any reason, have lost some degree of lung function. So that's
yes.
that's A and B. We still have C.
Yes. Okay, I'm ready.
You ready? Okay. So C is centering. And in the book, and then when I do other presentations, centering is, I call it your mind and your body working together. Because how often does any one of us have a fall, an accident, an injury, make a mistake on some project we're doing because our mind is one place, but our body is doing something else? So
Yeah.
by aligning, breathing, centering, now we can function more efficiently and more effectively. The other two meanings relate more to the physical center of gravity. I'm not going to go into that now. And learning that when in body mechanics, where we talk about safe bending, lifting, and carrying, keeping a weight close to your center of gravity.
Yeah.
For those of us in the healthcare field, it was learning how to help patients get up and transfer from, well, let's say, a chair to a bed or vice versa. So that's it. Alignment, breathing, centering. That's the ABC mind body system in a
I
nutshell.
love it. I love it. All those things are so critical and so important. And, for a while, I did a series of and I may start them again and show them my how I'm recovering with strength training and do some
Uh-huh.
videos about that. But I did some things with those strength training videos that talked about squats and the value of squats, and I would get a lot of comments from women that says, "I can't even stand up from a chair." And I so you start there. You start with being able to stand up hands free and scoot to the edge of the chair, okay? And then use your momentum, and then eventually just use your quads. And if you need to, push off a little bit. But how many times have you been on an airplane where the person behind you had to get up and they grabbed a hold of your seat and yanked up so they
Yeah.
could stand up, and you're like, "Wow!"
Whiplash.
Whiplash. And just
Right.
little things like that, getting out of the car to stand up without pushing, really builds such core at any point in life that you can do these exact things you're talking about. I absolutely think this is a key when you're talking about aging, Vicky, this alignment, the breath, being centered. I want you to talk just a little bit more about
Okay, hold
this.
on, if I may, before we go on,
Yes,
talking because I think I know there are research studies about the relationship between our ability to sit and stand independently to aging well. But here's a trick for those who cannot come to standing without holding on. You exercise, you strengthen those muscles by starting in the standing position, and this is in the book, starting in the standing position next to the chair. And you slowly bend from the knees, you push your hips back as if you're going to squat into a sit, but you
I'm
don't
doing
go
it
all the
right
way
now.
down.
I'm doing it in
You
my chair.
you got right? You
Right.
go only as far as you can before you feel like your muscles are gonna give out, and then you come back to standing. So you
Oh,
actually for those people who are aware of isometric, concentric,
yes,
eccentric contractions, what you are doing is an eccentric contraction of the quad and the glute, which are your main muscles of sit and stand. And so as you go from standing and you ease your way down to sitting, but you don't go all the way, come back up again. And you repeat this exercise, eventually you will get strong enough that you will be able to lower yourself all the way down to the chair slowly without plopping. We don't like plops and
right.
eventually be able to come to standing again. But you do your strengthening from the standing position. And what one of the other things that I emphasize, oh boy, Mary, you got me on a roll here. One of the
Well,
other
I
things
am
I
really
emphasize is
interested, so keep going.
okay, so um, is recognizing that some of us are not into exercise like Mary is. I'm one of those people. I'm like I love exercise. I could sit and watch it all day, Um, but But learning tricks that you can do, like becoming aware of your alignment, your breathing, your centering, and then slow motion. So what we talked about in returning from stand and going from standing to sitting, we're talking about using slow motion. You can do this every time you have to get up, sit down from a chair. Hopefully you're not spending too much time on the sofa or the recliner, on the toilet. You gotta
Yeah.
sit and stand in the toilet. Practice your sitting standing there, and I said the word sit and stand.
So, that is such I love that. This is all in the book, because what I do, I pretty much am very much self-taught. I didn't go to school for this. I took a couple coach classes, to learn about different exercises and things, but then I
Mhm.
just kinda learned what worked for me, and that wa so I started with sitting and then standing up, because I couldn't do that when I started. I probably didn't
Yeah.
mention that at age 50, I was 284 pounds.
I did see that on your website.
Yeah,
Amazing what you've done, but that's a
yeah.
whole other story.
That's a whole other story, but
I'd
so
have
I
to
just
interview you.
but that idea of starting in the standing position and then easing down, I can actually feel those muscles engage to the point where I feel like I'm gonna have to flop and then coming back to standing. I I think that's a great concept, Vicky.
Mhm.
I'm gonna just start doing that.
And you know what, Mary? There was another person that I was fortunate enough to interview with, and her focus is on people who are overweight, maybe morbidly obese. And I just want to take a moment to, if there's anybody like that who's listening to this podcast, y- you can start your fitness routine lying flat on your back. You probably need some pillows or a wedge, because most heavy people cannot tolerate lying on their back. So you have a
Right.
wedge to prop you up a little bit. If somehow somebody can help you get a large round bolster under your knees
Under your
and
knees.
just moving your arms, just straightening your legs, just pressing down on the bolster with your knees so your butt tightens up a little bit. I worked with a lady who was not able to move by herself from her wheelchair to the low mat in the exercise
Wow.
gym we had, and this was her exercise routine on her back, and eventually she was able to roll to her side, come to sitting, and transfer. It was a process, but
Yeah.
simple things that any of us can do during our everyday activities can make such a big difference.
Thank you for saying that, Vicky, because I think the mantra that I put out all the time is that nothing is impossible. You just take the smallest baby steps until the
Uh-huh.
next one, and that it's never too late.
Never,
These women that
never.
are at the 350, 400-pound mark, it's never too late, and it's not
No.
impossible. This can be done, and you and I have witnessed it.
Yeah, and sometimes, it's crazy, but sometimes it's really as simple as learning these ABCs that I cobbled together from my trainings. Um, just sitting, and I use mental imagery to help with postural alignment. Just sitting, and you can do this, Mary, while we're doing it, while
Okay,
I'm saying it,
great.
and just think lengthen, and you can close your eyes so your body just responds to the words lengthen, and just feel your core muscles engage. Don't do anything, don't make anything happen, but just think lengthen, and then think open, and feel the muscles in your neck and shoulders just release, and your shoulders drop kind of down and back. And then a lady in one of my presentations said, and make space in your chest. So here
Mm,
we are lengthening, we are opening, shoulders are dropping down and back, we're making space in our chest. And then we let the chin retract and the crown of the head rise up. And here we're just sitting, but we have done a core conditioning exercise. While we
ah,
stay in that position, we turn our attention to our breathing with the focus on the slow, prolonged exhalations. Breathing in through the nose, letting the midsection expand. This is very difficult for a lot of women, especially because 'cause we're so used to holding our stomachs in.
yeah,
But for
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, but breathing diaphragmatically, which, again, we talk about in the book why it's so valuable. It's your most efficient way of breathing. So a lengthen, open space in the chest, chin retracts, crown of the head rides up. Breathing in through the nose, midsection expands, slow, prolonged exhalations. And now you center on whatever it is that you want to focus on, whether it's a movement activity, some other project, whatever it is, or nothing. Maybe just
Mm,
positive meditations. So that to me is the key to any fitness and wellness program is just making
the
these
breathing.
ABCs part. Yeah, make them part of how you transform the ways you move through life.
That 3-breath process I do in the morning when I put my feet out before I put them down. I sit on the
Uh-huh.
edge of my bed, and I do that, and then in the morning when I'm in the morning sun, I do it. And then anytime during the day when I feel like and you can feel it, that breath is right here, up here, and that's tension, and then
Just let
stop,
it go.
3 prana breaths, I'm
Well,
ready to go.
well, now you do, but now you're going to do a line breathe center. Let it go.
Yeah, I
You're gonna,
like that. I love the alignment. I Women that I have worked with this breath and the deep breath, you are absolutely right. We are so used to, as women, holding that gut in. We don't know what that's like to expand that lower area
mm,
of the diaphragm and
right.
our lungs and to let all those I love the dust buddies, dust babies everywhere, to let them out and to
Yes, get rid
really
of them.
wow. Yeah. Think how
And
long
I have
some of
to
that
tell you,
air's been in there. Blah.
this is kind of funny, but somebody who had heard me do a presentation recommended me to her boss, and her boss hired me to do a 15-minute meditation break. I said, "Okay, you're willing to pay me to do a 15-minute break." And I actually did create a written meditation with pretty much the words that we've used just now. And I said, "But how do I tell somebody to meditate and center? I mean, how do you do that?" And my husband, God bless him, he said, "Well, think of your center of gravity, below the belly button." And I wound up integrating that center with breathing. Breathe down to your center, which kind of gets
Ah,
you letting go, another way to reach it. So,
I love that.
I'm hoping we're
Yeah,
also gonna have
center.
time to talk about the second set of ABCs that I created, because the first set was geared a lot towards how we function physically. And I said, "Well, what would I come up with for how to help us function better
Yeah.
mentally? Our attitudes, our beliefs, and our commitment." And in the book, what I suggest is that each one of us take a time to look at attitudes we have that are positive, that support us and empower us, attitudes which are usually related to our self-talk that may
Right.
not be as positive as supportive. And those attitudes we can often change a little more easily than beliefs. Beliefs are usually things we're born into in our families, our culture. They're harder to change, but they are worth looking at. There may be cultures where women shouldn't do certain things, blah, blah, blah. Take
Mm.
time to examine your beliefs and see which ones you may choose to let go of. So, commitment, I'm now adding the word choose, because once you've examined your attitudes and your beliefs and you've kind of chosen which ones you want to keep and which ones you might be better off changing, now you choose whether you're going to make the change. And
Ah,
so that is the other C. You choose and then you make a commitment to do whatever you need to do so that your attitudes, beliefs, and commitment support you in
yeah.
achieving all you want to and hope to in your life.
I love that piece that you added at the very end, Vicky, and that is choice. Because
Yeah.
we've talked before we entered on the air about the word should in our life. And should is that thumb screw that's on us, that's an exterior thumb screw. And
Mm,
eventually, we all fight back against the exterior thumb screw. Eventually, we feel it's involved with someone else controlling us, with
mhm.
shame and so many other
Yeah.
things.
Yes.
And should and shame go hand in hand. And but when you say choose, so you eliminate the word should, instead you say could. Could is another C word like choose. I
Yeah.
could do that. I could choose that. I love
Right.
that. And I, for one, am going to get your book and get started on being just like you when I
Oh,
grow up.
oh, no, you're gonna be just like you. Yeah.
Just like me, yes. And
Yes.
that is falling in love with yourself all over again and knowing what you have to offer to yourself and to the world. And this
Mhm.
piece that you're offering at now almost age 81 is absolutely phenomenal. I can't wait for people to find you and to follow you. All the links are at the end of the podcast, as well as how to get your book. And
Yeah.
perhaps I will see you in North Carolina.
That would be awesome, or also you will be back in Moab, who knows?
Come
But
back to Moab, we'll hike
we
together.
loved it, and we loved it. Well,
Oh,
thank you
thank you,
so
Vicki, for
much,
your piece and helping us craft a meaningful life.
and
Namaste.
thank you, Mary. Thank you so much.
Crafting a Meaningful Life.